What's up? What's up?
This isn't live yet.
What's up?
All right,
What's
now
up?
we're getting live. Let's look in the back. Do we look fine? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Microphone checker.
Baka
1, 2
baka
checker.
bam.
What does that mean? Baka baka bam.
I don't know. I made it up.
That's weird.
Baka baka bam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now.
Make that joint sing.
Hi everybody, we're live.
Hey, what's
we're
going
live
on?
with Is It Crazy or Is It God?
Yes. How you doing?
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm so glad. I'm gonna do a quick sound check.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Oh, I keep them company.
Oh look, I got a notification.
I think I did too.
Tell me how your week was.
Oh man, my week was interesting, guys. Hi. Got a bald head again. That's the great thing. My week was interesting because I say that because I didn't even go to the gym last week. I woke up early. Maybe one time, but I gotta really get back on it. So I think this week coming up, I'm gonna have a different result for you, for myself, not for you guys, but talking to you guys are kind of like my accountability partners. So, coming on here and being truthful about how my week went helps me get a lot of things off my chest that I normally would. And it's recorded in live. So I'm just being, oh, what's up? Hey, Damita. I'm being just being honest. Like I could have done a lot more this week. But I'm not going to, I'm learning not to dwell on the past. I'm learning to move forward. So because your past doesn't dictate your future, because your future is unknown, right? If I focus on what I didn't accomplish last week, that's going to hinder me on focusing on what I could accomplish this week because I'm living in the past. The past brings up bad emotions. So what I'm trying to learn to do now is to realize it happened and to be in the present moment, right? Acknowledge it and then move past it, right? Because if you don't acknowledge it, then it leads you to all these emotions and emotions of the past. So that's what I'm trying to do. So this is my accountability.
Hey DJ, sorry.
This is my accountability. So my week didn't go as planned. I'm not going to dwell on it.
Mm-hmm.
I learned from it, and I'm getting better. So this week I'm gonna be a lot better than I was last week.
I like that, and I heard everything you said while I was in there doing the sound check. I think everything you're saying is great, and I obviously agree with it because we've been talking about it, but it kind of coincides with what our reading was, to be honest with you. Because we go to these things and we forget how God helped us in the past, right? It's just like this new problem is the biggest problem, and God could never help me with this because this is just beyond everything.
Yeah.
And it's so silly when you think about what He's done in the past. Even if you're not talking about the Bible, it's like just look at the past things that you've been that you've overcome in your life.
Yeah.
And it's just like every new thing that happens you almost forget. But I definitely think, oh, thank you. Our viewer says we look great. So that's what I said, thank you. But I wanted to just just acknowledging what you said, because I definitely feel the same way. And when you talk about things being in the past, it's interesting because you don't have to relive it. You know what I mean? You can just learn from it and say, oh, okay, this is another way it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Let me apply something, some different sauce, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say, my week was very similar to your week. However, I also experienced some anxiety, which also, like you said, emotion from the past. I was able though this time to confront it and really just it's not even like I sat in it. I literally flipped it in the moment, like, oh, okay, because here's what happens with anxiety, right? It's the fear that something bad is going to happen, and it hasn't happened yet, right? So instead of doing what I normally do, which is like lament, sit there and just be like, oh, it could go wrong this way, and that would be horrible, and that would be like this. Instead of doing that this time, and I encountered that a few times this week, instead of doing that, I was so I don't know, I almost attacked it. I like held it in my mind. One thing that I'm training myself to say when I get an anxious thought is, oh, well, there's the thought, right? Doesn't mean it's true.
Doesn't mean it's
true. Examine it. Is that thought true? Or can you create something of the future out of this, right? Yeah. Is that like a blinking light? Like, oh, you're gonna run out of gas soon. Like it's like a warning.
Yeah.
It's not, especially our fearful thoughts. And that kind of goes into something I'm going to get into at the last part of our episode today. But especially fearful thoughts, I've been learning what to do with those thoughts because God did not give us fear. And then that begs the question, well, where is it coming from? Right? So where is this fear coming from? And then that allows me to like put it in a bubble, examine it, and understand that it's not a part of me. It's an emotion that I'm experiencing. It's a feeling that I'm experiencing, and to work with it and work out of it what I need, and then let the rest go. So I definitely did almost like a case study on myself this week because I just refused to be in a bad mood. Like I literally was just watching myself. I was watching myself throughout the week because there were several things that could have sort of like triggered me. Not my favorite word, but so sometimes people just overuse that word triggered. Crazy. Right? But there were several things that could have put me immediately in a bad mood. But then that's a choice that you're making. Right? And so I was really able to get in there and really examine those thoughts this week. And I'll go into some of the methods at the end of this episode.
Another thing, guys, this consistency is very important. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to share a little personal thing with us, bro. So we have consistently meal prepped.
Oh, you're going to tell that story.
For, man. I don't know. It's been some months.
So we've been meal prepping for a number of years, but like consistently, like on a roll, it was probably like a good 3 months.
3 months.
Without missing.
Not missing, right?
Yeah.
And
years,
we have because we used to meal prep at your mom's joint. Yeah. So, and my parents' house. Yeah. So my mom was like, "Can I take one?" I'm like,
"Yeah," because I'm gonna waste a couple of them. Please do.
I think your mom used to do the same thing.
Yeah, she's like, "Thanks for the salad."
You know what I'm saying? But so this week we didn't. Right? We were like, we're gonna do it Monday.
Oh,
yeah, we're gonna do it Tuesday. Right?
Horrible.
Now here's the thing: the importance of the small things like meal prepping. When you get to lunch, all of a sudden, our minds were blank. We were like, I wonder what we should eat.
We're like, what are we going to eat?
What are we going to eat? And then at dinner time was the same thing. And then, it's good. I love to cook, right? Faith likes to cook. She loves to cook, too. She loves to bake.
Yeah.
But then it gets to a point where it's like, it's Thursday. I want to cook. I don't know what to cook. And then, it takes both of us because we like a lot of fresh things. So we cook a lot of fresh vegetables. We have a lot of seasonings, and it takes a lot of time because I don't just like,
Throw some stuff in
the stuff. I like cooking with a lot of fresh vegetables. You know what I'm saying? Like cut my onions and the green peppers and the garlic and the mushrooms. That's how I like to cook, right? Like to season everything. So that takes time. You know, with the meal prep, you just pop it in. Especially if we usually meal prep sides. We just heat up the sides, heat up a chicken breast, and that's dinner. It's just no thought that goes into it. But for some reason, when we have things that we make this
is so funny.
We make this big. That's fair to be you're not cooking if you don't. Yeah, you gotta use garlic on your peppers. Yeah,
true.
Mushrooms, all that. I like cooking all that. So. If you don't do the small things and be consistent with that, as humans, we overthink the smallest and easiest things.
Yeah.
We were like,
what are we
doing? Dinner is like a calculus problem.
I mean, I would say lunch was harder because we were both working. We both worked from home. So it was like a point in the day where it's just like, I could literally skip lunch just because I'm hung up on that decision. Like, what are we going to eat for lunch? I don't know. Now it's 3:00. And it's like, okay, I should have stopped at some point. It would have been easier if I had meal prepped. So I want to go back a little bit because what you said about consistency was, I want to just hang out there for a second.
Yeah.
So the mistake we made last week, it was a Sunday night, and we were like, okay, do we want to just go ahead and meal prep right now, or let's just do it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right? That was the mistake. Because what happens is once the week starts, especially a payroll week, because I work on payroll. So it was like, okay, this isn't happening. It didn't happen Monday. Then we're like, we'll do it Tuesday. Tuesday came and went. Right now we're Wednesday. Now we're midweek. Are we really going to meal prep on Wednesday? Or it's just going to be, then you film, then I go live with Miss Damita Jo. So it's like by the time, like literally that was the mistake. We can't do that on a Sunday and be like, oh, we're not going to meal prep tonight, because the chances of us doing it the next night it's very slim, because it's just the week has started. There's so many other things, and it really, this is really just sort of like an example of how life goes when you don't prepare. Right? It's just like so many things that you just kind of like go. And the decision to prepare, it just seems like, oh, I can do it later.
No.
But that's just not how it works.
No.
You know, we've learned this lesson a few times. Okay, this is not the first time. This is the first time in a few months that we've learned this lesson. But there's a couple of lessons that I keep on learning, that I keep on telling myself, like, oh, that's why you weren't doing that. Oh, that's why you get your workout clothes together the night before. Because when you wake up in the morning, then it's a no-brainer, and you just get to the gym. Oh, that's why you do this. That's why you go to bed at this time. Oh, that's why you put that right there. That's why you clear off your desk and plan your week on the weekend. That's why there's so many things that I've learned time and time again, and then I continuously learn just because I just make the choice not to prepare. And so that was really interesting, because it kind of coincides with what we're getting ready to talk about when we talk about 2 Samuel, but it's really just like a life thing where it's just like, man, you could choose to prepare or choose not to prepare, and the latter is going to be harder for you. Like you're just not gonna, it's not going to be as smooth as it could have been. So anyway, life lessons with James and Faith.
Man.
So anyway, did I say how my week was? I think I did. It was a pretty good week. I could stand to because I was like, I addressed my anxiety. I could stand to do a few things more consistently. And sometimes when you're doing things consistently, it almost seems like a waste, especially when you're used to doing. It's not a waste, but it seems like an accessory, like, this is a nice to do, but I don't have to. You don't realize the impact that consistency is having until you start to get undisciplined, and then it's like, oh, this is a problem. That's why I decided to do it this way, right? Like, so
it's huge.
It is huge, but lessons
vital.
Learned. Yeah. Lessons learned, you know what I'm saying? Like, and this time
we're meal prepping a day. I'll tell you,
it'll stick. Yeah, for sure.
We've already
inevitably we'll be here again at some point and be like, oh,
maybe.
But I don't know. I just know how that went.
I think we're gonna. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Listen. Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
So this past week we read, actually, full transparency, we missed a lot of our reading sessions. Yeah. So we kind of like stuffed a bunch of reading into one session.
It happens, guys.
It happens, but look, we decided we're going to be consistent and we're not going to skip. So we ended up reading 2 Samuel 5:1-10, 1 Chronicles 11 and 12, Psalm 133, which you already knew, which is interesting to learn, and then Psalms 106 and 107.
Yeah.
This was an interesting read because some of it was kind of like the, the pronunciation of a bunch of names and troops and things like that. Man. But some of it was like you could see how they were putting these two books up next to each other, and saying like the 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles, they're basically saying the same thing, where David got king, got like not knighted, but you know what I'm saying, like
appointed.
He got appointed king, but it was from two different books. I thought that was so interesting because if you think about, sometimes when you think about reading the Bible from cover to cover, right? Like you might not necessarily make the connection that like this is the same thing that this said.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And that happens a few times in the Bible, a lot. It was just like, oh, this is the same thing that was said here. Yeah. Right. So, but it's interesting. So with 2 Samuel 5:1-10 and 1 Chronicles 11 and 10 are the same. But the 1 Chronicles went into depth a little bit more.
It went into depth, right? Because the 2 Samuel 1-10, it just tells how Israel becomes united, and then David becomes king, and they're all in agreement in David becoming king. And then Chronicles breaks down how he became king, his commanders, the bloodline of his commanders, how he took over the city, and that's kind of like the difference. It's like the 2 Samuel gave you just a brief synopsis, if I'm saying that correctly, and then Chronicles 11-12 goes in more depth. Mm-hmm. It breaks down quite a bit. All right, so I'm going to ask the question.
Let's get into it.
What are the differences between these two passages covering the same?
Oh, did we just answer that? We always do that.
And we don't read the questions beforehand. No,
David becomes king. King David captures Jerusalem warriors. Okay, well, that's kind of like the difference. The difference between the two passages covering the same event. One is like we just said. One is sort of like a very truncated version. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about 1 Chronicles 11 and 12, it takes it more in depth. Yeah. A couple of things to note that I thought were interesting. Yeah. Was in first. Okay, so let me just compare them. Yeah. So in 2 Samuel 5:1-10, it's literally 10 lines. Like when you call out a Bible verse, you talk about the book, right, which is 2 Samuel in this case, and you talk about the chapter 5, and then you talk about like the passage, the verses, right? So chapter 5, verse 1 through verse 10. So 1:1 through 1, or 5:1-10, basically. Yeah. That's such a small little snippet that obviously when you talk about reading 2 chapters out of 1 Chronicles, it's going to be longer and more detailed. But one of the things that I thought was interesting was they said the same words, but then in 2 Samuel 5:8, it goes into like this whole saying like the blind or the lame shall not come into the royal house of Israel. Earlier in that passage, when David went to go to Jerusalem, the people were saying, the inhabitants of the land said, you shouldn't enter here, for the blind and even the blind and lame will turn you away. Like you're not going to be named king here, so you might as well turn away. Yeah. So then later I came to like understand that when David made his comment in 5:8, he was basically saying, okay, well they shouldn't come into the royal house. Like the people who will reject me shouldn't come into the house of Israel, right? Like those are the people who aren't invited, like whoever will reject me. Yeah. So then you want to go into depth about 1 Chronicles 11 and 12? You want me to
I mean, the first Chronicles 11 and 12, it breaks down all of David's soldiers, all his warriors, and it breaks down his chiefs. I think it has 3 commanders, and then it breaks down the warriors that leads the army, and then it breaks down of how everybody came together as one, all the tribes. I don't think this has happened in a really long time. Maybe since
they were being united.
Since maybe united. Moses,
maybe
probably around with Moses and maybe Joshua, when all of them, when they came into the new land and they started establishing, all of them were together and conquering. So this might have been the first time, and it says David had 120,000.
That's a lot of people.
Large army. That's a large army.
They broke down all of the tribes and said who came from which tribe and like what their power was.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting, but they were all excited.
Yeah.
They even the people who weren't going to battle, they brought all of like the food and the oxen and the olive oil, and they were just all there. It was almost like they were rejoicing. Like, it's not even almost like, I think they were rejoicing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're gonna name David king because Samuel was the one who said that to them, right? And it was word from God.
Yeah.
But one of the questions that I had,
they chose Saul.
Remember? They had already chosen Saul.
They already chosen Saul, and then he said, "This is David." But I get,
But it was interesting to me because, and maybe I'll come to understand this later. But it was interesting to me because I was like, did they all what sort of like prompted everybody to come together and say, okay, now it's David?
That is a good question.
Right? Because it's just like they all came together at once. And it might have been the death of Saul, because we were reading a whole bunch of stuff and how David mourned, and how they would mourn back then. They would put like dirt on their head, and they were mourning for Saul. Even though Saul was trying to kill David, David was still honorable in the way.
Could that be a reason?
That they waited, or maybe they didn't wait.
No, could that be a reason why all of them combined because of David?
I don't know, but it's like, it wasn't a phone call.
Nah.
So what was it that prompted them? Was it like, the Holy Spirit or something? I don't know. First of all, I didn't even realize the Holy Spirit was already in existence until I read it.
Yeah.
In First Chronicles 12:18.
Yeah, I'm reading that now.
I was like, wow, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm reading the Amplified version, so I don't know if it says that in all the versions.
It says, in mine, it says, you're talking about 18, right?
I'm talking about First Chronicles 12:18.
Yeah, it says, the Spirit clothed.
Okay, mine says in brackets, the Holy, right?
Yeah.
Spirit came on my side, who was chief of the 30, and he said, and that's what prompted him to say, "We are yours, O David, and with you, O son of Jesse." Right? Like, they were basically, because David was saying to them, like, hey, if you're not with me, then know that I'm asking God to like punish you. But if you came to help me, then great. Let's do this.
He united Israel, which is pretty good.
So that's the answer. Basically, 11 and First Chronicles 11 and 12 go into more detail about who the warriors were, about exactly what happened, and that's the difference between sort of like the truncated version that happened in 2 Samuel 5, 1-10. Okay.
Psalms 133.
Oh, that's it. That's all we're talking about in this one.
Yeah.
A psalm of praise and unity. So I'll let you talk about that since it's so special.
Yeah, it's kind of I just know this verse. I learned it online, and it's kind of exactly what we're talking about, how they all came unto unity because of David. So Psalms 33 is about being together and praising it. Like, we're all here, we're together, and we're praising that we're together. And it's a short verse, and I'm going to read it. It says, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. It's like the precious oil on the head, running down on the beard of Aaron, running down the collar of his robes. It's like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord has commanded the blessings, life forevermore. So I think that is just encompassing unity.
That's cool. Okay, what's the question? David likely wrote this psalm for or after his coronation of being king. What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
You said it means unity.
It means unity. It means everybody being together and then celebrating the Lord has brought us together. You know, it just means that we're on the same accord. We are one body with multiple moving parts, but we all move into unison.
One thing that it means to me, and this kind of comes out of the studies of some of the other verses that we're not talking about right now, but it just kind of sort of reinforces the idea of, you know, more than one person coming together. There's something about sharing something with someone, like a moment or a life or a space. It's like when you're sharing something, it means more. You could have like for instance, Shannon Sharp just said this a couple weeks ago when he was talking to Ocho Cinco, I think.
Yeah.
Because he was like, he was like, I'm realizing that, life and success is great, but it's better when you have someone to share it with.
Man,
right?
Joe Rogan said the same thing.
It's real. It's nothing like,
new. When you build this success and you look around and nobody's there.
Yeah, that's pretty,
like you want to share it,
On the other hand, even like I just remember being we were never like poor, but like we lived in some sketchy areas. And even when we didn't have much, it was like whenever we would get together with our cousins or go outside and be with our friends, we didn't need a lot of stuff. You know, we didn't need anything. We could just be out there playing tag or just talking or walking around and going to the creek or, you know what I'm saying? Just doing kid stuff. But you didn't even really need any toys, right? It might have been like one person with a bike or one person with a skateboard, but we weren't all skateboarding and biking. We were just out there talking, throwing rocks, like making up songs,
climb trees.
We would just do whatever, and we were happy.
I used to have to. I'm about to climb this tree.
It's like you don't really need much, but when you're together and you when you're together with people and you are sharing an experience, you're sharing a life, it's just it's joyful. Right? And so you could be alone and have everything and it doesn't mean anything. So it definitely means that for me. And then also it just reminds me of another verse I'm going to go over later, which we didn't read, but this is part of my early verse, is that God meant for us to be having a good time. Right? Like I think there is a weird underlying myth sometimes in the sort of, I don't know if it's a Christian community or what, but sometimes I think people get it wrong where they're thinking like, oh, being a Christian is hard, or being obedient to God is just so hard. It's such a hard life and it's so, disciplined. So there's no joy, but it's like God wants us to have fun. God wants us to be joyful and to like have a good time being a human being. Like I think
He doesn't want us to like dwell on, he doesn't want us to dwell on the past. He doesn't want us to dwell. Listen, life is hard regardless, right? So it's just, you might as well have fun.
But so this definitely made me think of that, because it's like the end of it in Psalm 133:3. Coming down the hills of Zion, for the Lord has commanded the blessing, life forevermore. It's like, oh, everybody's blessed. Everybody's having a good time.
Blessed.
So that's what that verse means to me.
Yeah. It's like, and I think that's the myth with entrepreneurship as well, where it's like, all they do is work. Like, well, nah. They have fun. I just don't think. I think it's this level of this perception that we have, this misperception that we have. Like, oh, you can't believe in God, be a Christian, and go after your dreams. It's too hard. Where in reality, you're supposed to be going to the road less traveled, because that's what God wants for you. Now, you're gonna have some fun. And your life's gonna be hard, But life is going to be hard anyway when you're not having fun. So you might as well go after your dreams and follow God. He's given us a blueprint. Listen, in 20 years, when I'm still doing this, I'm going to be having a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. I know. And so I wanted to just, break down a little bit what you say, because I think that you're absolutely right. I think that one of the main things that makes people unhappy is when we're doing something that, not necessarily that we're not called to do, but like I think sometimes we get stuck in a situation because we don't think that what we're called, what we feel like we should be doing, either that we're not smart enough, we're not good enough, we're not ready, you know what I mean? And so you're called to do certain things for certain seasons. Like I definitely, like back in my 20s and 30s, worked in the hospitality industry, and I think that was appropriate for me right then, because I learned so much about people, about interaction, about networking, about
being nice to people,
operating procedures,
having patience.
I learned so much, and I observed so much about how a system operates well.
Yeah,
I think I was studying that without even noticing that I had an appreciation for it.
How to build relationships.
Very
vital.
And you know
communication
what? Sometimes in those environments, I could even say this, and I think I could say this and be so on point with this. This is my opinion, but I think it's true. It's so hard to not be yourself in the environment of hospitality because your coworkers know exactly who you are. Yeah. Like you can't really hide it. No. Like if you don't have integrity, it's going to show up. Yep. If you're not a kind person, it's going to show up. If you're a sweet person, it's going to show up. If you're a funny person, it's going to show up. If you're a mean person, if you're like whatever your spirit is, it's like you can't work that closely with people
hide it.
and them not know. And it's like it's so funny, but
people know when you're having an off day.
But I feel like this though. I feel like, you do what you're supposed to do for that season, and then you have to really lean into the trust that you have for God and move forward with what He wants you to do. When you bring up the example about the entrepreneurship, I feel like a lot of people get caught up into doing business that they think might be lucrative or might be, whatever, but it's not necessarily their calling, right? And so when you think about what you love to do, if you love doing it, then you're going to have some joy at some point. It's not going to be all honky-dory all the time, but you're going to love it. Like if you love, let's say, braiding hair, right? It's like, you can progress and figure out how to scale that business. But like when you're braiding or when you're studying braiding or you're studying parts of the business, you're enjoying learning. You're enjoying the physical activity of doing it because it's your passion, right? And it's the same thing with, writers and sports analysts and artists. It's like you're just learning and everything, even if you have a 15 or 18 hour day, you were doing what you loved in that subject all day. So it works out. Anyway, we kind of you can't get off on a tangent when you're on a podcast. That's my personal opinion. You're having a conversation.
And listen, all this is tied to God. So.
Oh, Damita Jo said facts. I don't even know which part you were talking about because we were on a rant. But anyway, so all those were facts. I'll take it. So anyway, okay, so moving right along. So the next part we read was Psalms 106 and 107.
Yeah, those were pretty good.
The Psalms of Praise. Oh, they were so good. Sometimes I'm reading and like I just get so excited to just be a part of okay, let me say this. Slow down and say this. Sometimes when I'm reading the Bible, I'll come up on something that's so familiar. It's not even like I've read it before, but it's like, oh, I know this to be true. It's like, ooh. You know what I mean? And this is kind of like that. So when we were reading, I think it was 106. It might have been 107. It might have been both. But when we were reading it, I remember thinking like, ooh, this is so good. Like, this is what I need. This is what I need to be like reading, or this is what I've been experiencing. And like right there, it'll just be like the thing and the answer to it. Right. And it's like, oh, I didn't look at it like that, or I forgot. Like I need to think about it like this. You know what I'm saying? So this was one of those parts because I was like, oh yeah, let me go back to it because I don't even know what it said. I know it was like a rejoice of like, part of it wasn't. Part of it was like, look at how silly people are. Yeah, that was probably the part that I was really okay. So 106. So okay, what's the question?
This is what we about to go. What you're about to do now?
Name several lines in succession that you relate to the most. Yeah. This is so wild.
You know what it is? I think just because that we are getting better and better about talking about the Bible, we kind of like.
I don't know. This is eerie. Like,
I think we flow into it.
Several lines in succession that you relate to. That's exactly what I was about to go and do. That's why I was like, let me read the question before.
I was like, hold on.
That's so funny.
All right, so I can tell you something that stood out to me in number 6.
106.
106.
Psalm 106.
Psalm 106, verse 20. No, 19 and 20. And this is how this relates to me the most. You just got to listen to it. They made themselves a calf in Horeb and worshipped the metal image. They exchanged the glory of God for the image of an ox that eats grass. Now, this is what happens. Backstory to this. Moses was talking to God about the 10 Commandments, and he leaves the Israelites for 1 second, and then they build a golden calf and are worshiping it. God does not like false idols. The reason that this relates to me because I'm not worshiping a golden calf, but to me this stands out because sometimes I forget the glory of God and rely on my own. Like I can do this without him, and so far that hasn't gotten me where I'm at. Where I'm at today is because of God. So sometimes I think we tend to forget how powerful God is, and how loving he is. We just want to do it on our own. And we say this all the time. He gives you the blueprint to get anything you want in life. You know, you just got to follow the laws.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question because it just popped up to me and I have an answer for myself.
Yeah.
But when you say you want to do it on your own without God, what exactly does that look like? What does that mean?
So it means that, okay, I'll give you an example. When I do it without God, I get frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
I get angry.
Yeah.
I doubt myself.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I talk negative to myself.
Ain't that something? Because God doesn't do that.
God doesn't do that, right? So I'm like, But then when I pray and, you know, I do my meditation and visualization and I wake up and I pray and I'm all into him, I feel like I'm all the way up.
Yeah.
I'm all the way up.
Yeah.
Nothing frustrates me. I don't get mad. I'm like, man, I woke up early this morning. I'll be tired, but I'm like, I'll remember, like, right when we read the Bible in the morning, I'll just remember, like, okay, I don't be like the Israelites, James, like, be loving. Because you just read it.
Okay, so this is what I was gonna say, and then I'll answer the question. Because this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Right. So when you say things like, because people say this all the time, oh, we want to do it on our own, we want to do it without God. To me, what that means is that you're not like praying first. You're not like bringing this thing to God. Sometimes I think we get a little bit ahead of ourselves and we're like, oh, this is too petty to bring to God, or I just want to have my worldly fleshly feelings. So it's like, case in point, when somebody gets on my nerves, right, and I just want to like talk bad about them, and I just want to be like, well, this person, this that anyway, so whatever, right? And it's like, I'm not taking that to God. Or I'll call somebody else and be like, don't you hate it when so and so does this, right? It's like either gossip or I'll just want to be upset. You ever get in? I know you do because I've witnessed you do it. So this is a trick question. You ever get in a mood and you're like, no, I want to be angry.
Yep.
I want to be irritated. I don't want a solution. I just want to be angry.
I've said that to you.
Yeah, I know. Because I'll say like, what are you just going to be mad?
Yes, I'm going to be mad. I'll be like, I don't care. I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna have a bad day, and I don't care.
I gotta tell the story because this is so funny. We moved into the house that we used to live in like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were just like getting used to like the routine and schedule of living in that place. So like the trash day was on a different day than we were used to, like just different things were happening.
Friday.
So like, and we both had 2 jobs. This is 4 jobs, 1 household.
Yeah.
So like our days would start and then they would go until, 18 hours later. And then it's like, okay, let's go back home, recharge, repeat.
Yeah.
So this one particular day, and then now that I'm thinking about it, it must have been a Friday because we were leaving out of the house ready to go to our day jobs. And James was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to take out the trash. Oh my gosh, there's trash upstairs. I forgot to empty the bathroom trash, and the trash in the kitchen is still there. I meant to take it out last night, and the trash people already came. Right. And we were on our way to work. So he was just like pissed because he's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to get rid of this unless I figure out another solution. And I was just like, well, maybe we can figure something else out because we also have access to a dump area. So I was like, maybe we could just go and take it and take it to the dump. Yeah. So, but then it was like, oh, but then I have to juggle my plans because I didn't plan to do that. So now we got to go all the way over here.
Yeah.
And he was just like, and then this is happening and that's happening. He had like 2 other things, right, that he was having a problem with. Yeah. And I still got to do this. It was like maybe 3 or 4 things he had listed. And then we were on our way to work. And I asked him like, oh, well, because I tried to offer a solution first. And then he was just like, eh. And I was like, so what are you going to be? Are you going to have a bad day now because of those things? And he was like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to have a bad day.
I don't care.
I was like, why would you choose to have a bad day? So it just became hilarious to me because I was like, well, I'm not.
Yep. I was like, I'm going to have a bad day. I don't care.
And I mean, so I'm saying that not to make fun of you, but to just laugh at it because I feel that way sometimes, not for all day.
Very few. Very few.
And that particular situation was like 5 years ago. So what I'm saying is, we do that a lot. Like I think a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
When you get in your mood and you just want to be sad, or you want to be, you just want to be in a bad mood.
It sucks
like
for your
it's
coworkers. It sucks for everybody else.
That's what I'm saying when I'm saying break down what you mean about not going to God. Because the other thing that you could do is you could say, okay, God, everything feels like it's crashing in on me.
Yeah.
I really want to cry or punch something, but I'm just going to bring this to you. Sometimes I think we feel really silly for bringing something which we think is petty to God, right? Yeah. But so anyway, what's funny, I think about that particular situation is it was a holiday week, so the trash didn't even get picked up until the following day. So it was just like, I don't remember if I prayed about it or whatever, but I'm just saying that's what I'm getting ready to point out as one of my things. Yeah. Oh, Miss Damita Jo says, yes, especially when life starts lifing. Yep. You literally have to make a choice to not let it take control. Exactly. Oh, I'm going to call that out right here in this verse. But what's funny is I think sometimes we feel like those things are so small and like, oh, God is too busy to handle this, whatever that I'm going through, but he's not. And in fact, that is strengthening your faith and relationship with God to take it to him. Yeah. So that's what is meant when it's like doing something with God. Yeah. Right. And so with that, I do want to say this.
Because I'm about to let you
and then I'm going to go into this. It's 2 parts.
So before you get into that, this is the vital thing where when you rely on God, those moments happen less and less.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I'm going to be mad, but I'm going to be mad, let it go, and continue.
Yeah.
Not carry it on. You pray about it, let it go, continue, because life, you got to be in that present. You got to be in the present, because what I didn't take out the trash, that's the past.
Yeah. And like, what's the future? What's the solution? It almost reminds me of when, you have a young child, or even into my teenage years, I can remember doing this to my mom, where I would just have an attitude about little stupid stuff. And she would just, I'd say mommy me. She would just be like, oh, okay, what are you going to do about it? Yeah. Or she would be like, oh, well, you can do this, right? And she would like have this like high pitch, like whatever. And it would just be so irritating to me. But it's like, okay, well, it worked out anyway. You know what I'm saying? It would always work out. But I know she was probably like really irritated talking to the 16-year-old me. Like, I know she probably just wanted to be like, shut your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes she did say that. Yeah. And sometimes she shut it for me. But like, you think about like a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old like crying because, you know, their gum fell out of their mouth or something. And it's just like they're crying to the, you know, to the incident, right? And it's just like, and you think to yourself like, oh, this isn't a big deal. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes like you kind of got to take that and realize like, I'm going to move on. Yeah. But okay, so anyway, the two parts to me that are like, okay, so this part right here is Psalm 106:29. Thus they provoked him to anger with their practices, and a plague broke out among them. Then Phinehas the priest stood up and interceded, and so the plague was halted. One thing that sticks out to me about that is like, even when you mess up, and like, let's say you ask God for something and you get it, or you don't ask God for something and you get something and you misuse it or you abuse it or whatever, or do the wrong thing, and you find yourself in a pickle, you could still call out to God and he's still going to help you, even though you were so silly to get yourself in the situation, right? So there's something, because I don't think a lot of people realize that. They kind of feel like, oh, I got myself into this, I guess I'm going to have to get myself out. And it's like, no, that's not the case. Yeah. Another part is this, is Psalm 106:12. Then Israel believed in the validity of his words. Yeah. And they sang his praise, but they quickly forgot his works. Yep. They did not patiently wait for his counsel and purpose to be revealed regarding them. Okay, that speaks to me so loud because, like I said, I go through life and I be like, oh, you know, everything's great. And then when it's not, it's like everything's bad when that's not the truth, right? So it's like I forget how good God is, right? Yeah. And sometimes you need to pray and wait and be silent and be still and let God come and tell you what to do. Because sometimes we just want whatever we want right now, and God is trying to teach you something through what you're going through. Man. So it's like you got to be patient and you got to just take it to God and be like, I don't know what's happening here, but I'll show me what to do, and then wait.
I'll give a great example in our own life, right? T Street. We had to be there. We had to learn. We had to change our mindset in order to be where we're at now.
Yeah, and where we're going.
Where we're going.
Yeah. It's like for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think that
we were like, we were just like,
we went through so many little things, but every little thing is almost like the conglomerate of all the things happening. Yeah. And then you put them together and they equal like a bigger lesson, but you grew in so many ways. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like you grew spiritually, you grew emotionally, you know what I'm saying? There's just certain things that had to take place because you're in this area, you're in this part of your life. Yeah. Right? So I think that's interesting. Okay, so that is all we are going to say for that. But I do want to say this one thing before we end. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because we got like a couple minutes left. Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that James was talking about a few weeks ago, and I'm going to do something, if it's not today, because it's Super Bowl Sunday, so I might not get to it today, but definitely by next week, I'm going to start showing some videos of not just the two of us, but just like top down, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go over it right now so you know what's coming, but it also has to do with reading the Bible and studying the Bible, so I think it's really fun to go over this. So, and I'm going to be so super quick. So when we talk about doing devotionals in the morning, like James does his own thing and I do my own thing. We read together and we film together. And sometimes we study together. Like, what does this mean? Like, let's look up a video, or let's look this verse up, or let's look up this word in the concordance. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's compare this. Let's look at the charts that are in the study Bible. Sometimes we'll do that, but a lot of times we kind of like do our own thing and like learn our own stuff. Yeah. And that's kind of like what this is. So in the mornings, you meditate and visualize and you do those things and you pray. And that's kind of like your devotion time. Yeah. And my devotion time looks similar But I like to write stuff down a lot, so that's where this stuff comes from, and I'll just show you. So like I have this, and you don't need one of these, but I would definitely recommend getting just a notebook, and this is a little notebook, so this is just a thing of notebooks. But so there's two that I go into all the time, and so one of them is gratitude, and what I try to do is, and I don't do it every single day, I don't get to it every single day. But what I try to do is I'll go through it, and I'll show this on a more like close up video where I just go in and I just give gratitude. Sometimes it's for little things like, to have everything that I need. This one day, this was in January. I'm so grateful for a dishwasher. So grateful for fluffy, clean linen. This is so funny. But like sometimes I'll say that sometimes it's deeper than that. I thank God for James a lot. I'm grateful for hopefulness and belief. Like that's a huge thing, because when you don't have hope, that's a really big problem. So, I do gratitude. I do that probably for about maybe like it's like a 4 or 5 minute entry. And then I'll do my affirmations. And what I do is, so James says his affirmations a little differently because he's written down his affirmations for like the entire year and he recorded it. And sometimes he'll like listen to it in his sleep at night.
Bible verses.
And so we'll do that too. Like sometimes we'll go and there's I might link it if I can find it, but there's a channel called Abide, and they kind of do these like they'll Bible affirmations, and they kind of tell stories about the Bible, and sometimes I read verses, but it's like in this calming voice, so like you're asleep and it has this like melodious music in the background, and it's just kind of like comforting, because
we learned what you listen to when you sleep is very vital.
Oh my gosh,
vital.
I can attest to that in the former, like in the alternate way, which is sometimes because I still like to watch the ID channel, and sometimes I'll go to sleep and be watching something on the ID channel, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be thinking like really weird. Like one time I fell asleep with the ID channel on, and just like not even on purpose, right? And when I woke up, I was like looking at the door and I was like, is the door locked? Is the door locked? And for some reason I had this feeling that like somebody was coming to get me. And
you wake me up and let me tell you, you were like, is the door locked? And I went to go
check probably did. I don't remember, but I remember thinking like, even though I knew it was locked, after whatever, calmed me from that, I still woke up a couple more times and thought like, oh my gosh, somebody could come in here at any minute. It's just like, why would I be thinking about something like that? It's just not, it doesn't serve me. So anyway, I do that, and then so for my affirmations, a lot of times I will, I'll say things like, I'm a creator, I'm powerful, I'm, and I'll quote a Bible verse about like how God makes me powerful, like how God has blessed us.
Very key for affirmations. I
am, because you got to do it like in the present tense, and some of these things haven't necessarily like come to pass in the physical form, but like I believe that I'm powerful. I believe my hands are powerful. I believe my brain is powerful. I believe all of these things. But sometimes what I'll do is I'll take something that makes me have anxiety and I'll flip it into an affirmation. Like for instance, let's say, oh man, I would hate to be late for this meeting today, right? Like, oh, that meeting is at 10 o'clock, and if I run into traffic, then this is going to be bad. I won't say that. Like, why would I say that? You know what I'm saying? I would say like, I'm so grateful that I got there an hour before the meeting and everything was in place, and it was such a productive meeting because I was so prepared. Right? Like I'll say that before the meeting even happens, before the day even comes. And it's like, I'd rather be thinking that thought. And 9 times out of 10, that's exactly how it happens. I mean, really 10 times out of 10, because that hasn't happened to me, to be honest with you. I was just using that as an example. But I was just thinking to myself, like, if you have an issue or a worry, a problem, something that could go wrong, turn it into an affirmation. And God gives us so many promises, and especially in the Bible. And if you call them out, He will give them to you. You know what I'm saying? A lot of it, this is so funny about what I'm learning now about reading the Bible, because there's so many things that I would have anxiety about. But now that I know what God says about it, it's like, oh God, just like you said, whatever I think I have and believe that I have it is mine, right? That's an actual Bible verse. And so we read a lot of these, like, sort of like what they would call self-help books. And a lot of the information that they give in those books is actually in the Bible, right? Like Earl Nightingale says things that are from the Bible. Napoleon Hill says things that are from the Bible. Jim Rohn says things that are from the Bible.
I think Brian Tracy does too.
Brian Tracy, ironically, Tom Billio says things that are from the Bible. I printed out some of his like rules for success because he has this whole thing with the Quest line that he did, and he has the impact theory, and he has these like laws of like whatever he goes by, and a lot of them have to do with like hard work and integrity, stuff that is said in the Bible. And the reason I say it's ironic is because I have this, relationship in my head with Tom Billio where he makes so much scientific sense, but he is a acclaimed, like, I don't say he's an atheist, but he makes it clear that he doesn't like follow a religion or like necessarily believe in God. But it's so funny because when he talks to people on his show that do believe in God, he's like, wow, that's interesting because I believe the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, oh, because you're studying science, which is built off of what God's laws are. Yep. Right. It's like science is just a study of what happened. But like God's going to tell you his laws. They're right there in the Bible. So you could either, you could do both. You know what I'm saying? I believe somebody said this in the book that I was listening to. Oh, it was the Napoleon Hill Joe. It was like science is a religion in a certain way because scientists are looking for the truth.
Yeah.
So it's like they might not believe.
It's funny because some believe in God and some don't.
Well, here's the thing. It's like some
scientists that believe in God be like, well.
It's interesting because it's the human condition. If you really think about the two, this is such a juicy little piece of the conversation because if you think about the two, science is the study of what happened. Yeah. Right. So scientists are like super behind and believe like we can prove this because we studied it and it came out this way 100 times. And so this is how we believe this is going to happen. Yeah. Right. Meanwhile, God's law is right there. Yep. And if you were to compare your results with God's law, you would have believed God's law. You probably would have not even needed to do that 100 times. But it's good that you did that 100 times because those people who are like you, who don't want to look at this, can look at that and it says the same thing. And I'm not saying that's the case in every single scenario, but it's interesting because, scientists do base their facts and stuff off of actual, experiment and study. So it's like,
I don't believe it's you shared this clip with me and I'm going to continue to say it. He was like, oh man, some scientists believe in the Big Bang Theory and this other scientist got up and was like, you need matter, space, and time. When God created the heavens and the earth, that's matter, space, and time.
Yeah.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's matter, space, and time.
It's so we can
talk
about that.
You want to do our shout
I'm
out?
going to do the shout out real quick. Oh, she said, yep, I do that when I'm stressing about being late. I'm always where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be.
Yep.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what kind of accidents or whatever
I think Jerome said that when he was like, you think that you're on the way to work and you're stressing about being late. He was like, why don't you just appreciate you're going to work, be in the present moment. Everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I was listening to him stressing on the way to work, being late. And I got to work and everybody's like, hi, James. Nothing.
And it's nothing.
And I was like, at that point in time, I was like, okay. Because then you make up these little things in your mind. And and she said, at the end of the day, if I'm late, I'm late. You're right. Yep. Like,
and everybody's gonna be fine.
Everybody's gonna be fine, guys.
And this is the funny thing about that. That was just an example. But let me just say this.
I was so angry that he was like,
it's interesting to me that people, like we all do that, right? We're all just like, oh my God, I don't want to be late. I don't want to be late. I think Beyonce was irritated last week because they were late to the Grammys.
Yeah.
And they have this clip of Jay-Z just like offering her a drink, and like I think she was irritated. But I mean, look, everything turned out fine. We're all here waiting to see you, Beyonce.
Yeah.
We're fine waiting a few more minutes. Yeah. And here's the thing about being late to something like that, it's like, okay, there are these freak things in life that if you're late for, it could cost you something, right? Yeah. Like maybe you're late to court, or maybe you're late to somewhere else, wherever, right? Yeah. But the idea that everything's gonna go, down the drain because you're late is really not a real thing. It's an example of what anxiety is. Yep. Right. I could tell you, like, there's definitely not been a lot of, I don't think there's ever been a time, but like, to think that you're going to go meet your coworkers for, let's say, a meeting, and to think that there's no capable worker that could help you out for the 10 minutes that you're late, or who wasn't paying attention. Like, the fact that you're late means everything is going to be ruined. And I mean, like, I used to work for the president of the organization that I work for now, and there were a couple times where he was late, and you know what happened when that happened? We figured it out. Yeah. We made sure, like, if he was meeting with somebody important, we took care of them. We're like, oh, he'll be here soon. Yeah. Like, let me get you a water. Let me give you a tour. Let me blah, blah, blah. Let me do this. Like, I know what the meeting's going to be about. Maybe I can offer you some information or something in the meantime that's going to occupy you in the way that you came here for. And then once he gets here, he'll step in. Yep. So to think about, like, if I'm going to go to a meeting and I have to present, somebody there is going to be able to, like, hang back and either give some information or let the time pass that I'm not there yet. It's gonna all be okay. Yep. But it's so funny to me that when we think we're late, like, everything's haywire. It's like, do you think there's 30 people just sitting there like, oh, I wonder, what I mean? It's like I wonder what to do now.
Just like the co-founder of Netflix, he said, you're running for the plane.
Right. Yeah. You're running for the plane, and most of the time you're either right on time or sometimes you don't make it. And the times you don't make it, it gets figured out. You know what I'm saying? So it's no even worry about. But that's so funny because it's just the epitome of what anxiety truly is. And it's for nothing. It's for you to occupy your time being worried and not enjoying your life. Yep. So that's so funny. Like, that's kind of like, right. Okay. So anyway, shout out. So I'll start because my favorite person, one of my favorite people is on our chat today, Miss Damita Jo. So that's my first shout out. Thank you so much. She said, great live. I'll give her a shout out. You can find her over at Miss Damita Jo on YouTube, and on Instagram, it's by Damita Jo. Yeah. And I'm gonna put that in the description when this is a live, but it'll be there obviously, and I'll put it in the description box. I also want to give a shout out to those two sisters. I'm half of those two sisters, and the other half is right there. Yeah. And you can join us Thursday nights. Yep. Disclaimer: it is an adult conversation for adults. It is not PG-13. So come on over and enjoy two sisters talking about culture and life and things that are popular, and that's it. And so then what shout outs do you have?
Shout outs to I'm gonna do a shout out to fourth quarter. It's guys, listen, you love sports. This week we're gonna break down the Super Bowl. We go live every Wednesday at 7. We just talk about sports from a fan's perspective. You really like it. And that's it. Also, I gotta send Damita the.
Oh yeah, you do.
Yeah, so, Damita, I gotta send you something. I think you'll like it.
So we'll go fourth quarter. I'll send you something. So anyway, guys, that's all we got for you this week. Yep. Next week we're gonna pick back up with 2 Samuel, 1 Chronicles. We're gonna read some more Psalms, and we'll end with more 2 Samuel, 1 Chronicles. Yeah. So we're just basically seeing how David's coming to his king. Yeah. To his kingdom, and how fun that is. And I will also be recording and sharing some of my memory verse. So I've talked about the gratitude and affirmation. Yeah. I'll also go into some of the memory verses that I do. That'll be cool. And that'll be cool. It'll be just something else. It's, so many ways that you can study God's word. Yeah. And it's so helpful to have it when you need it, which is all the time. So anyway, as we like to say, don't take our word for it. Go to the source, read your Bible. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining our live. Thank you. All right. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.